Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Second Act Actors. I'm your host, Dr. Janet McMorty, and I am still a medical doctor simultaneously trying to pursue a career in acting. My guest this week is Stephanie Herrera. Stephanie is an insurance broker and an actor who had a career in sales prior to pursuing her career in acting. We met when I was selected as a judge for the Ontario International Film Festival. It was so much fun. Stephanie is the director of this film festival. It was so much fun to be a judge and watch these amazing Canadian films. As I say in this episode, and I still feel this now, if you are a Canadian filmmaker who made a film in Canada, period, that deserves a round of applause. But adding on, if you're a Canadian filmmaker who successfully makes a film in Canada during a pandemic, all of my hats are lifted and raised to you. Hats off to you. Let's continue to support these incredible Canadian filmmakers. Let's boost up this film industry. And Stephanie is one of those people who is a huge champion for Canadians and their content in film and television. Please enjoy the hilarious, the inspirational, and motivating Stephanie Herrera.
And now over to you. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly, right? Stick my microphone in their face. Like, tell me more about your story. And they're like, oh, God. But it was funny. I was thinking about you this morning. I was talking to my husband. And because I was thinking, how did we actually meet? And I know we've never actually met in person, but was it, I know Ontario, the film festival, Ontario International Film Festival, my husband and I were both judges. But did we know each other before then?
I don't know. Were you suggested by someone like Taz or no, because Taz was a judge because he's in the stunt world. Tazito.
Yeah.
I don't know
and it's
how
funny
we met.
I just linked up with Taz like this
okay,
weekend.
so it wasn't through Taz.
So I don't think that was it.
Wow.
Movie Expo.
Yeah. That's so strange.
I think that happens a lot in our industry,
Yes.
right? Where you're like, I don't know how I met this person. I feel like I know them. I'm sure we met them at some point, virtually or non, a class somewhere. I don't know. All I know is that she seems really fun and nice.
Exactly. We speak each other's language. Yes, absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, you know what? Judging the Ontario International Film Festival was so much fun. It was a lovely way for my husband and I to both do something film together, because he's not really in the industry, but he loves film so much. And just being able to watch some of these films that, honestly, I never would have had the opportunity to see. Exactly. Oh, we had such a fun time.
I'm so glad. Well, definitely help us out next year, because that's just it. I have a lot of judges that come back, and I'm the same way. I've been judging film festivals for, at least 5 years now, if not more. And there are still movies to this day that like haunt me in a good way, that I'm just like, oh my God, no one will ever see that. I'm like one of the few people. And I've even gone so much as to search out some films. And the film festivals are like, here's their links and they're available. I'm like, good, we need to start sharing these. Like people need to see these films. Yeah, it's really nice.
Well, so much film gets made that we never get to see because we just see whatever is on the streaming, what have you. But, and especially some of the Canadian content, right? Like obviously we did a lot of some cool international films that we were judging too, but some of the Canadian ones, I was just like, yes, you made a movie in Canada during a pandemic. Like, gold star.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? And it was really nice I always judge the films and then do my score, and then I look at everyone else's because I don't want it to influence me. So I marked this one. Did you see the one? It was about two brothers in a parking lot, and they kind of bump into each other and they have that fight. It was, it was like, it was pretty good. And I marked it. And then I started reading. I was like, it took me like 10 minutes to figure out he was the same actor. I'm like, pardon? I went back and I gave it like, I had to watch it again. I was blown away by this actor who literally looked different, went home, and also to go home, shave the beard off, come back, do the whole thing. I was like, he gets so many props. It was well written. Yeah. That was
cool. I do remember that one. And I remember in this one, and of course I'm having a brain blank about what the actual movie is called. That's terrible, but it'll stick with me forever. The one about the people who work at Waste Management in Edmonton.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
The documentary about it. And it was all about, because they hire people who've been in the prison system. And so they have a really difficult time finding work. And it was all about, finding some of the crazy stuff they find when sorting people's trash. And then the connections that they made between like these human beings feeling like they're trash and society not wanting them anymore, but now they feel like they're accepted in society. Well, like they have a job, they have a purpose. Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's so good. I was like, take all the 10 out of 10s. It was so good.
Amazing. Yeah. Great.
Well, tell me your story. How did you get into the acting world?
Oh gosh. I think I'm one of those kids. I always called myself a look at me kid. I was always like, Mommy. And I remember that I was in dance because I wanted to do that. I remember I was in a commercial when I was young. I guess I just wanted to be on television. Unfortunately, I was with growing up with a single mom who's, too tired and doesn't have the time to really, drive me into age. And also my first memories are in Kitchener. I was born in Toronto, but my mom went back to university. She went to the University of Waterloo. So my first memories are there, but that's where we did the commercial. And I have no idea how, I don't remember auditioning. I remember auditioning for some other things, but that one I just was on set. Like that's my memory of being on set. So I've always had a desire. I've always been, the lead in all the school plays. I've always been sort of like, yeah, I'll do it. I could memorize speeches. I was like at the semifinals of this huge speech competition for all the schools in the area and stuff. And it was one of these things where I just had a desire for it and I guess a skill because people were applauding and putting me, in front of other people all the time. So I guess it started young. Professionally, I guess I took a real good go at it in my 20s. I went to York University for theater because that was sort of where I had grown up in at that point. And but I switched over to the playwriting stream and because I couldn't find any good Canadian content to audition with. Like honestly, I was in theater books in Toronto and I was on the floor and I'd gone through so many books. I'm like, everything's crap. That's it. And I went back to my dorm and I called and I said, when is the playwriting submission? And they're like, tonight. And I just printed up stuff that I'd written in high school that had been performed and things that I did in my creative writing class and sent in and got in it. And I went that stream. I also went to York University because it was the only school that at the time had a degree. And I thought I was going to be a teacher. I was like, I'm going to be a drama teacher. I'm going to live out my life. Like my drama teacher, I would go back and visit like 5 years, 10 years later. She looked the same. She was the most relaxed. And she just loved her job. And I would say to her, Deb, this is amazing. And she goes, I have the best job in the world. I just watch talent. That's all she did. And so I'm like, that's what I want to do. So I went there specifically for that reason. So I had a goal in mind to be a teacher with that acting sort of undercurrent. So all through university, I was in theater. And then in my 20s, I'm like, I'm going to give it a try. And I had terrible agents. The first couple agents I had were terrible. And it wasn't until after the family, we moved out to Durham Region. I have a family, me and my husband. And again, I was just in improv and doing my theater stuff and coming back to it really in my late 40s. To really do it again. And it feels like I'm doing it fresh, to be honest with you. It's kind of like it's new now.
What were you doing in that time from 20s to 40s? What were you doing in that time?
So that's sort of, I guess, my first act, as you would call it. It was, I always had my foot in some kind of play or doing something like that. However, I was always, I had a joke that I would tell people at like dinner parties and what it was my thing. I said, name a job, I've had it or probably had something related to it. And the first thing usually people would say like stripper. I'm like, no, go-go dancer. And like, they're like, what? And they'd say, maid. I'm like, no, I used to clean houses, people with cats. I used to go in and vacuum. Like it was I had these weird jobs that came out of nowhere. And I just kind of was always kind of pulled in. Eventually I was sucked into the corporate world because I always had jobs in, I eventually got into sales. Okay, let me start again. So I always had jobs in customer service of some sort. So I was in retail, I was a waitress. I've kind of done a little bit of customer service in those realms. But it was really through my work as a, like, for example, personal trainer. I was really heavy into personal training. And then one day I kind of like looked down at myself and I was in a suit. I was selling memberships. They pulled me into sales. I was like, hey, wait a minute. This is when I signed up for, and I left that world. And then I was just doing data entry, midnight data entry job. And the next thing I know, I look down, I'm in a suit. I'm a manager of a sales team and in a corporate world. I'm like, wait, how does this happen? I was born into multi-level marketing. My mom was in Amway, so that kind of thing. So I had gone through that as well. So sales has always been sort of my first career, totally not by choice, but I think that has really shaped my acting. It made me a lot better. And I think customer service in general, anybody who's, that's what I love about acting. Actors, most of them have been waiters or waitresses, because it fits really well with that customer service and being able to relate to people and work with people and that kind of thing. So it was, yeah, sales, I think, is the thing that I did mostly.
Yeah. It's very performative.
Yeah.
Customer service and sales, right? Like,
absolutely.
I think it needs so much confidence and, a feeling of, if I get rejected, that's okay.
Exactly.
I can pick myself back up and keep doing it again the next day. Yeah. And that sounds like acting.
Exactly. And a lot of people are like, how do you get over it? I'm like, I don't know. I've been doing it all the time, asking for the close. And when they say, no, I'm like, okay, moving on to the next one. So absolutely, this is exactly what I got from that. It was also interesting in terms of sales, how acting also kind of helped me, because my first year of university, well, I'm kind of in the dorm room, we're all hanging out, just chatting away. And then I said, yeah, I got to get a job. And they're like, what, you're just going to go get a job? I'm like, yeah, my mom called me the queen of jobs. I could just get jobs. And I was like, yeah, I'll just go down and figure out. There's apparently an employment center here on campus. So I walked down and I said, hi, I'm looking for a job on campus. And they said, well, look, there's a book. And it was like this big of just jobs at the university. And I was like, okay. So I kind of flipped there. It was like the second one. It was a night job at the business school on campus at York University to do, to call the alumni and ask for donations. And I kind of was like, and I called them and he goes, yeah, can you come now? I'm like, sure. And I walked over to that building and he looked at my resume, which I had one receptionist job in high school, but the rest of it was a little bit of retail. And like, I worked at a yogurt shop, like really nothing. And he's looking at my resume and then he said, wait a minute. You're in the theater program? And I said, yeah. And he said, so you can act like you're having a good day when you're not? I'm like, absolutely. And he's like, you're hired. And that got me my first kind of big sales job. And then and I was bringing in thousands of dollars and I just go in at night. They gave me a key. I was by myself and I just got on the phone and called alumni and I was just bringing in so much money. They expanded that department because they had no idea there was all this money that I was pulling in. It was hilarious. But I love that concept of like, wait a minute, you can act, you're hired, which doesn't happen often. But I've seen it, and I've seen it in customer service where I've had bad customer service, and I'm like, whoa, you got to pretend you're having a good day.
Yeah,
no
exception. Yeah, you have to get up and over that. Yeah, because, well, one, again, that is, if you're a career or you want to be an actor, I mean, there's going to be days when you're feeling like trash, and you have to pretend to be really happy and smiley on the set of this Hallmark movie, and yeah, you gotta. I think, yeah, there's so much translatable skills from there. And I mean, I think at baseline, every person should have a customer service job so that they don't treat people who are in customer service like trash when they get older and blah. But yeah, that's great. When you like in your 20s, like that kind of gap first act, was there a time in your 20s when you said, oh, I think I need to take a break from theater and playwriting and concentrate on these jobs?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it even to the point where I was in, excuse me, I was in a job that was a corporate sales job. And then everyone I came up one day, someone said, so what did you get your degree in? And I was like, oh, I never finished. And they're like, what do you mean you didn't finish? I'm like, well, I got offered. This was a night data entry, and now suddenly I'm heading a team. And so I have one credit left and never went back. They're like, Stephanie, you have to finish. So I went back to university to get that one credit. But it was one of those things where it was just my focus had shifted so much onto, how far can I get in this company, money, and it's about that time of, I don't know, being a grown up. Like to me, it was, this is what being a grown up is getting to work at 9 to 5. And that was it. Going into the office when the sun was just coming up and coming out when it was down. And I was like, wow, I'm no tan anymore. I was just like this mole that just worked in. And that's how I appreciate movies. They're about like Office Space and stuff. Like I was like, I've been there. I realize what it is. And I also sometimes think that there's a lot of people that actually have never had an office job. And it's so amazing to watch things like The Office and shows like that. I'm like, yes, they understand my people, because it's one of those things. And again, some people have never had landscaping jobs, and that's a whole other world. But it's just this weird dynamic of everyone, sleeping with each other in the office and all that kind of stuff. It's mind-boggling how crazy it is.
Did that feeling of, oh, now I have to work the 9 to 5 job and make the money and do the practical thing, did that come from anywhere? Did that come from, parents, or was it just kind of that was what society told people to do?
I think because I'm a Gen Xer, so it's one of those, we're sort of the last visage of the old, like, work at a job you hate for the weekend, and that's it. And so,
don't complain.
Don't complain. Well, you can, but privately or with your friends.
Your
or on the weekends when you're drinking, going, "Fuck, I hate my job." Sorry. But it's one of those things where it was that we saw our parents working at jobs they hated to provide. So that was instilled in us that it's just like, get any job you can and stick with it and work as hard as you can. Because also we did see some parents of ours had jobs for 50 years. Like they were retiring with their job. We don't see that anymore. There's so much turnover. There's so much people pivoting and all these entrepreneurs now. We didn't have that kind of thing. Those were crazy people when I was young. So I come from that sort of the last line, and just talking to my kids where I'm like, hey, do you want to get a job at Tim Hortons? And they're like, oh, that kind of sounds boring or unsatisfying. And I'm like, what are you talking? Like, yeah, that's a job. Like it's not called playtime. It's called a job for a reason. So I certainly came from that. Find something, make the best of it, work as hard as you possibly can, and gather as much money as you possibly can from it. Try to make as much money from that kind of, yeah.
What was the flip back into now what you're doing? Again, acting.
That's a really good question. I guess it was, we moved out to Durham region, and I had a job in the States at the Pennsylvania Renaissance Fair. I was the improv and interaction director for 2 years, which was tons of fun. Oh my God. But I literally packed up and left my husband for several months of the year and all through the summer to do this wonderful job. And the second year, so the first year I went, I flew back for a day, got married, and then flew back to work. And everyone's like, what are you doing? I'm like, no, I got to get back. I've got performances. I have to go. So they like, take a day off, open your presents. I'm like, fine. So I took one day and then came back. And then my honeymoon was really, my husband flew and stayed with me for a week and watched my shows and got to experience what I was doing that summer. The next summer I flew back. I was pregnant. And so when our first child was born, my husband said, you got to settle in, hun. You got to find something to do here. I can't have you and our kid just going away. And I was like, okay, good, valid point. So I'd done no research when we moved to Durham region. And so I was like, oh, I'll just connect with whatever improv community, because that was my big thing. I was just passionate about improv when I was in Toronto. And I was like, I'll just, whatever improv community, I'll just hook up with them. Turns out there was none. So that was really me going, all right, well, I'll start one. And he's like, what? And I said, well, I'll just start some, I'll start some classes, and I'll take it upon myself. I'll start a school. I will train people, and that will eventually get me back on stage, and that will fulfill what I'm doing while I worked at a little video shop and stuff, like, because I'm a mom now. So that was really my thing. And I put a little article in the newspaper, first ever improv troupe for Durham region. 6 people called me, they got in the class, and then it just grew from there. So suddenly that eventually became my bread and butter, my baby. I started this little thing where we started doing shows. I got to a black box theater. I worked, we eventually had a roster of teachers. We were teaching everything from kids classes and adults. By then I was just doing the advanced classes, on screen camera, voice acting, sketch writing. I was doing all sort of the advanced, and then I had a roster of teachers doing all the beginner classes and all the kids classes. So it was like a sustainable acting school, which was great. And then that kind of and I do have 4 children because I'm insane. So after my 4th one, so all of this is as I'm pregnant and having kids and kind of doing that, having these 2 worlds working together. After my 4th was weaned, and I kind of looked at her and I said, I could probably start getting back into the screen acting. Maybe I should look for an agent back in Toronto and start that up again now that my youngest doesn't need me as much. And out the gate, I got a commercial that took me to Spain. So I left my poor husband with 4 children under the age of 5. Like, it was just like, I just left all the kids and I took off to Spain to shoot a commercial. That poor guy. But it was one of those things where I just kind of, it was a very eye-opening experience to come back to the acting, on-screen acting, from being in my 20s, and everyone in their 20s wants to be an actor, and it's really hard to find an agent, and you're scrambling over each other. But to come back in my 40s, suddenly I had 2 agents interested in me because mom roles are big and there's not as many people in the pool. So I did very well when I came back. But that was really my thing of going, it's when I'm happiest is when I'm performing. So maybe I can look into it, and just so happened it worked out really well for me to come back.
Wow. Yeah. Do you still teach?
A little bit. Durham Improv, unfortunately, because of COVID, we were shut down for 2 years. And I, sorry, my voice is terrible today. Thank goodness. So my life has taken many a turn. So during COVID, I did some pivoting of my own. I also have my day job. So after 2 years, I got together with my board and I'm like, I think it's done. And they're like, yeah, it's sad, but it's done. We started in around 2004. So it's been around for a while. So in that time, as I'm teaching at my school, I would be invited to other improv or acting schools to help out. During COVID, I worked at the Milne Studio doing online improv classes for, and I took 2. I said, I want to do serious and I want to do comedic. And he's like, what do you mean? I said, well, the serious improv, we really need to work on getting those reenactment shows. Because most of those, have you done those? Yeah, they give you a scenario and you walk in a room with a perfect stranger and then you're improvising a really intense scene. Sometimes they're murdering you. Sometimes you're begging them to whatever, or you're killing someone, whatever it is. It's like really intense improvised scene. And I said, a lot of actors are not prepared going into that room, that it's pretty intense. So I'm going to do that class. And then I'm going to do a fun, lighthearted, how to prepare for commercial auditions. Because sometimes that's also comedic timing, improv, and we just want to see how funny you can take this one little scene. So I was doing those 2 classes. So occasionally I'll come out and do a workshop or 2, but really not unless somebody's begging me. They're like, we really want to do an improv class, Stephanie, come on out. I'll pay you. And I'm like, fine, I'll come out and do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you balance you said you have a day job now, you're still mom, and now a successful acting career. How do you balance that? And I know that's a ridiculous question, but people always ask me that same question.
Yes. You know what? I think from what I've gotten, and you might agree to this, it's all about your partner. Having a part, and people ask my husband, "Oh, are you in the industry?" He's like, "God, no." And I love that. I love that about him. He's gross. So I always say to people, like, and I've had this. I've been on panels, film festivals, and I'll get a hand. How do you do it all, Stephanie? As a woman, as a young woman, I want to know how you do it. And I'm like, don't marry someone in this industry. Whatever you do, get someone with a real job and a benefit plan, and you will do well. So that's what I really have to get kudos to my husband, who would, have me. He's coming in from his work, and I'm handing him babies. I gotta go. I got a show, and I would take off, or I'd be like, quick, I want Vine. Do you remember Vine? We were we were big Viners, and I'd get him dressed up in wigs. Like he goes along with everything. When I was in the theater, he was building stages, running lights for me. He was my lighting improviser, bringing the lights down. Like he had watched enough of it, so he knew when to edit scenes and all that stuff. So he has always been my support. So whether it's with the kids or my career, it's always been, okay, Steph, whatever you need to do. I've often said, like, maybe I should move to Vancouver. It's closer to LA. And he's like, okay, well, I can get a job there too. Like his job, he's in the railroad business. So he's like, well, as long as there's railroads, I could probably get a job. So he's very flexible and easy. He just is the biggest support. So that's my biggest advice to anyone who ever wants to know, how do you do it? Just don't marry another person in this industry. It's the worst.
Has there been anything that has surprised you coming back into this industry after that bit of first act?
Yeah, I guess it surprised me. The first and foremost was how they really wanted older actors. Like, because you don't see it, and we complain about it as women, 40 and over, they're immediately saying there's no roles for us. I was actually surprised at how many roles there were available. And actually, when you get to that white-haired grandmother stage, there's even more, which is great, because a lot of people have either fallen off at that point or not too many people come in at around that age. So there's a little bit smaller pool, which surprised me. The other thing was how important the social media stuff is. I had no idea how, and I've actually been asked in auditions or even when filling out forms, what are your Instagram and your Twitter handle and how many followers do you have? I'm like, really? And I got a chance to ask that to a casting director from the United States, from Los Angeles. And they were like, yeah, unfortunately, he said it's starting to change, but right now it is a huge sway. If you've got followers, then you're bringing an audience with you already, an established audience. However, he said that is slowly and thankfully changing, because they tried this with YouTubers. They had all these YouTube stars. They started pulling them, going, they've got millions of viewers. Cool, let's put them in movies. The thing is, YouTubers don't go see movies. They watch YouTube clips. So they're starting to finally figure it out. Oh, not only was it a bad movie and terrible acting because they're not actors, no one came to see it. Duh. So it's like, so thankfully it's apparently moving, but I'm still, getting that, we loved you for the part, but we went with a name. Or we went with somebody who's got tons of followers and huge following. I'm like, really? Okay. That catch-22.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I just saw casting that went through, and by the time this airs, it will have been gone. But they were looking for like a female host for something, and I was like, "Oh, that sounds great!" Like my agent loves to submit me for host stuff, but they're like, "Must have, not required, but hint hint, must have more than 25,000 followers on Instagram." Oh my God. And that was like part of it. They're like, any ethnicity, no hosting experience necessary. 25,000 plus followers on Instagram. I was like, huh. That was like one of the first times I'd seen an actual casting
requirement. Yeah, I mean, they say, it's crazy. So that shocked me.
Yeah.
And I don't like it.
No, I don't like it either. Well, and one, because people will say, no, it doesn't really matter. But, my agent's been very upfront with that. She's like, I've had casting directors come and they've like scoped social media and they've been like, yeah, we went with such and such, like you were saying, because they were a bit more of a quote unquote name. But it's interesting what you're saying about age in the industry. And I've talked to other people, I was chatting with Helen Tansey, the headshot photographer, and she does she has a book called Sundari Women, where she's photographed women over the age of 40 to kind of like celebrate aging in the industry. And I remember when I was looking for an agent when I was getting in, and I'm not quite 40, but I am very, very close. And I remember talking to my now agent, and she was interested in signing me. And I had been through tons of agents already saying no. Mm-hmm. And so I was shocked when she wanted to sign me, because she's a great agent. And I'm like, well, I know there's tons of me out there, 30-something white female. And she's like, yes, but also no, because the atrophy rate for 30-something females in this industry is extremely high. Because if they've especially been through this as their first act, gone through, like you were saying, in their 20s, and now just getting like kind of discouraged with the industry, and they're like, you know what, I think I'm done. Like you were saying, once you hit 40, you get the mom 40 roles. left, right, and center.
Yeah.
And they're here for the taking.
Exactly.
And I'm here for it. I'll be mom 40 till the cows come home. I love it.
Absolutely. And then you get, I mean, as long as you come in with that wonderful attitude that you have with, yeah, I'll take it. And on top of that, you can find ways to make it interesting for you. I have a bucket list of the types of moms I want to play now.
Yeah.
Like, and I've had some, like, I'm still waiting for the Italian mom because I would be a great Italian mom. But I played a Greek mom, and I've played lots of Hispanic moms, obviously. But it's one of these things where, like, I now have a bucket list of moms I want to play, types of moms, and getting to play the cougar, getting to play like all the MILF and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, like so embracing that. Getting excited about the fact, yes, I've been put in a box, but I'm going to have a lot of fun in this box.
Yeah, this box is going to be awesome. Yeah, and people are going to want to join me in this box. Speaking of the roles that you've played, do you have any memorable, funny memories or times on set?
I've got a few, and I was thinking about this too, about some of the weirdest things that I've done. I guess, and you know what really came up for me? Things that happen to other people. I'm like, and I was like, no, I can't tell those stories. I guess one of the ones that was just that kind of thing when you shake your head and go, gosh, what we do for our art. I was in a music video, and it's got millions of views. It's a really established Latin band called Bomba Estéreo, and it's called Internacionales. Like, they have done videos with like Will Smith and stuff. They've won the one before that won the Cannes directing award. Like, they're really, really established. So they get millions and millions of people. So I knew it was going to be a really cool thing. It was a non-union at the time. I was still non-union. And so it was a music video that took me to Hong Kong and Morocco and Hamilton, Ontario. So it was a whirlwind ride around the world. So in Morocco, Hong Kong was great. They had professional fixers. It was a great production. But Morocco apparently was one of these very kind of backroom deal. The head of their union was like the same guy. The family all voted him in. Like, and he was terrible. So they didn't get the right equipment. Everything was crazy. And just there was a scene where they needed to do a green screen. They said, we have to get up at like 4 a.m. We got to be there at 5. And I was like, okay. So we're leaving the hotel, and they have ladders, and we're like walking through the quiet, dark streets of Morocco, going Fez, which is the oldest, largest city in the world, and we're going through these like cavernous things. We get to this thing, then they lean the ladder. It's the middle of the night, basically. We're crawling up these ladders to go into this almost like amphitheater thing. I think it was maybe a soccer field, but it was all stone and really old. And we crawl over this fence. They set it up. By the time the equipment comes, they get it all set up. The sun is now up. They're trying to do it before the sun, because it's unbelievable heat, and we're in the middle of this playing field. So then they set it up. Then their arguing starts again. The guy not only didn't bring the right stuff, it didn't even have like the right pulley system to. They needed to hoist me up in front of it because I had to look like I was flying. They had a harness like something you would get from like roofing, or like a safety belt. It wasn't a harness that raises you up. So they're like tucking towels into my costume to try to not chafe my like everything. So I'm like padded up. Then they try to squeeze me in the costume. And then they had 4 guys on the ground who had to physically, they had one little pulley and raise me up. They're like, we're going to try to do this as fast as we can and everything. And I'm just like, I couldn't die. I could get injured. It's one of those things. And I said, and I handed my phone to someone. I'm like, get a picture of this, because no one's going to, and you can see all 4 guys with the rope, and they're 1, 2, 3. And I did my scene. But I'm like, what? Again, non-union. Like, there have been so many non-union moments when you went through the non-union world, right? First, where it's just like, this is crazy what we're doing right now. I've had friends that were like, walk in and there's a tiger, and they're like stand next to the tiger, and they're like, no. And they're like, because well, you knew there was a tiger. Well, there's in the script, I thought it was going to be CGI'd. Like, I didn't know there would be a lie. They're like, it's fine. It's probably fine. Like, he's eaten, so it's going to be fine. And he was like, call my agent. I want an extra $1,000. And he actually did. A lot of actors would have been like, okay. And now nothing happened. But he was smart enough to at least say, nope, call my agent. I want more money. Yeah. And he got it. We're crazy. We're what we do for our art.
I know. What we do for our art, and also what we do because we want to be seen as happy to be here and easy to work with.
Yes.
I don't want to cause trouble.
Yeah.
And you're like, tiger. flying through the air on a random harness in Morocco.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my goodness. So you've talked about your wonderful family and support system. How would they describe what you do for a living?
Something crazy. I mean, I even telling my kids I was a teacher, they're like, no, you're not. I'm like, I have a school. Like, I will have you know. They're like, because the world of what a teacher is in their world and what I do is completely different. Mm-hmm. They know I'm absolutely crazy. I think it's the detriment to my high schoolers. My two older ones are just like, they are so teased because of some of the roles that I've done. Like, I'm the pizza pop hot mom. And so thousands of comments of like MILF, and he's like, oh no. And so a lot of their friends refer to me as their hot mom and stuff, and the pizza pop hot mom, and they're devastated. So they don't really get what I do, why I would want to do it. They're not look at me, any of them. They have done a couple of wonderful projects because I pulled them in. I'm like, I got a kid, I can pull this kid. Or and they did voice. All of them had a great voiceover career when they were cute little voices. So they've been in it enough to understand what I'm doing, but no concept of what I do. So they look at me and what I do is crazy. It's just crazy. Crazy mom, crazy stuff she does. They don't get it. My husband also, he's an introvert. He has no idea why I do it.
Well, I was just thinking about like the energy you bring to everything. Now, like, I wonder, was there pressure when you were kind of in your 20s? Is that pressure kind of gone now? Like, so you can just kind of relax into like the fun roles that you get thrown at you, as opposed to being like, must book, must do this, stress. Like, I don't know what I'm asking, but I don't know. I just feel, I know for me personally, the pressure's off. And I mean, I didn't have the acting dreams when I was younger, but I just feel like now I'm like, it's kind of like what you're saying with sales, right? If you get rejected, I'm like, okay, next, as opposed to like, no. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Kind of. I mean, I am in this kind of limbo of, I don't think, my 20s, I'm like, I have to make it. I have to move to New York for a couple of years. I have to move to LA. I have to make it. So that kind of feeling has dissipated. I do have a little bit of, what's that word? That feeling that just makes you go, Steph, your life is half over. Like, shit, you're 50 now. Get on. You better get on with this because it's going to be over soon. So I do have that nagging thought in my head, like, if it hasn't happened yet, is it going to happen at all? And then, but you're right, it is a sort of settling in because things are starting to fall in place. I'm getting parts. I'm getting more recognition. My writing has taken off. So it's one of those things where, and people keep telling me, my agents, other people, it's coming, Stephanie, like, we know. And the people that have been with me forever go, here it comes. This is it. I'm like, okay, calm down. Wait until I get that contract signed, kind of thing. So it's one of these, it feels like it's at the right place. And whenever I feel like that nagging, like, if I'd only, not had kids and gone to LA and maybe made it, that all that kind of, maybe I shoulda, woulda, coulda kind of thing. I think it's happening. I truly trust in that it's happening at the right time, because me at 20 going to LA is a completely different thing than me as a grounded 50-year-old woman that's had a family, that's had a life going to LA. Completely different. And I think it serves me better that I did take the route that I did. So I think the pressure is off, to answer your question, in so many different ways. I would have been a mess. I would have been a cokehead, and I was so desperate for attention in my 20s and wanting to do the right thing that I probably would have fallen very fast and hard and gotten my heart broken and stomped on. And I would have been out with the trash.
Well, I think there's now a life to pull stories from, right? So you can build characters and build story because you've lived a lot of things and experienced a lot of emotions that I know, back in my 20s I was not experiencing. But also there's a feeling of, this is me, this is what I look like, this is my face, this is my body type. If you don't like it, that's fine. That's just what I look like now. So it's kind of like, I don't know who am I trying to impress these days? I don't know. Like, you want to introduce yourself to casting directors and you want to do blah blah blah, be like, you know what, they know what my face looks like.
Yeah.
They've seen me on casting workbook. Meh. If they don't want to hire me, meh.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely the pressure, I think, is off at this point, for sure.
Besides marrying a wonderful, wonderful, supportive person, do you have any advice for someone who's interested in getting either back into acting or starting it in there with great wiseness and maturity?
Yeah, learn as much as you can. I love that line. God, who said it? Somebody made the point. I'm sure a lot of people have made this point. Acting is the only career that you can wake up and go, I think I'll be an actor, and then become one. Like it's the only job. You can't wake up and go, I think I'll be a surgeon today, and just go. Like there's so much training involved with most things. Acting's the only thing that you can literally walk off the street and get some lines and get paid for it. So it unfortunately, a lot of people come to the industry and immediately want to get on a series and start pitching their stuff and make it huge instantly, which we did. In my 20s, I was working really hard towards that goal as well. So I always, and the really great top echelon of actors, they still have coaches and taking classes. Like I've had so many stories where people have been in classes in LA or here, and well, it's mostly in LA, and then a famous celebrity walks in taking the class with them, and they're like, what? And they're like, yeah, I love this class. And it's like, oh, right, you don't just say I'm an actor and now you're an actor. You have to train and consistently train. And there was one actor that I can't remember the movie right now. He was I think he was a boxer or an MMA fighter or something. He wanted to be an actor. He did not go on an audition. I think it was a year at least, if not 2. Trained. All he did was take classes and train and study, and then he went on his first audition. And that blew me away. I'm like, why aren't we more doing that? Because anybody can walk in and audition. And you know, most agents, if you got a cool look, agents will scoop you up, throw you in a room, and then you're learning by default and by tripping over your feet. Oh, I won't do that again in a room in front of people. Why not do it in a classroom and like keep learning? So I always stress to people, once you start getting roles, the learning doesn't stop. I still take workshops. I still work with coaches. I still so that's my biggest advice to anyone. Keep learning, stay the eternal student through the whole thing.
Great advice. Is there anything you're looking forward to coming up this year? I think, yeah. I mean, I had some really meaty roles that I'm really excited about. I just got off an amazing Christmas movie called Well Suited for Christmas, which was like a dream role. I was a supporting character. I was like, number 4 on the call sheet. So I was like, yeah, that's there. So I was there for the 3 weeks. It was phenomenal. So I'm really looking forward to that coming out acting wise. Then on the other side with the writing, I pivoted during COVID and started writing for kids animation, and it's worked for me. So I'm working on a new show. I don't know if I can name it yet, but it's a Sony Pictures. It was a movie, an animated movie. They're turning it into a TV series. I got to write on Peanuts this year, Camp Snoopy this year, which was like to be typing and then Snoopy walks over was like mind blowing for me. But this new one, I'm a regular series writer, so I've got 3 scripts going right now. So that I'm really excited to see that. And my originals are being pitched around. Like, I mean, I've had some great interest with CBC. CBS looked at one of my originals and really liked it, and Hallmark was considering one of my pitches as well, right to the end. So it's one of those things where, again, that's another, like, I can feel it that it's gonna happen at this point. So the writing is what I'm really excited about. Wow, that's so cool. Can I ask, with writing, excuse me, I know I'm having voice issues. How do like aspiring writers? I know you did playwriting was your degree. Mm-hmm. Like, how do aspiring writers start to build and get their work and their stories into the hands of somebody like CBC and CBS? Like, how did you build that momentum?
I got an agent. Really, CBC will talk to anybody, honestly. They're really, Bell Media, you can get pitches with them. Like, you can totally go in a room and pitch them. It's really when it comes down to your work, and I really wanted to make sure my work was prime. So what's wonderful about my agency, Real Life Pictures Inc., they really focus on diversity. So that was wonderful to be in an organization. They do have like your typical cisgender white males, a few of them, but most of it is diverse across cultures and ethnicities and sexuality and everything. So we've got this nice little bubble of everybody in it, which is wonderful. And we do script reads. So you can literally, it goes out, they cast everybody, and we as readers will read it. And then we give our notes. Then we put on our writer's caps and literally give constructive notes, which is great. So that's wonderful. Workshopping your material is key. Get people to hear it, read it, give you notes, take those notes, and not be precious with your work. Like I've had scripts that have been changed, and somebody warned me about that. One of the scripts I was working on, and he said, just wait, because that's going to change. That he had a script that was werewolves, and then it became aliens, and then it became like, and he said, it's just like you think, oh, this is such a good idea. It's such a good script. And he goes, by the time it's finished, it's not anything like your first draft. So really don't be precious about it, really shape it. And I have seen a lot of my scripts go, but I love this. And then by the end of it, yeah, it's better. It's totally not this, but I can pull those pieces that I really love that I had to drop and I'll throw it in something else. It's not a big deal. I can still use those gags somewhere else. So it's really about finding an agent that will take you on. And before that, it's all about the writing and getting into work. And there's tons of workshop, like just groups of writers that say, every week we get together and we read someone's scripts and we help shape it. I went through the BIPOC film and TV, which if people are identify as BIPOC, the BIPOC film and TV is phenomenal. They've got great programs. And through that, I found out about the kids TV writing boot camp. I didn't get accepted, but that's okay. But what's great about them is that they said, do you want to audit? I was like, absolutely. And there were like about 40 of us that audited the course. So I watched every single, I was there. I was in the course. We just couldn't turn our camera on and ask questions on site. But it was, I reached out to every guest lecturer. Some of them have read my scripts. Like I'm a salesperson, right? So I'm there, I'm making deals and getting people to look at my stuff. And I did all the homework. So at the end of it, I had my spec script ready. I was like, I'm doing this. And so it's having that chutzpah. It's really taking the initiative. And then when I said to my agent, I'm ready, I've got spec scripts, then she went to all the production houses and introduced me. And I got Zoom meetings with all of these production houses, introducing myself, my energy, my originals, here's my spec script. And they, by the time I had a second round, I was, somebody else had suggested, hey, have you talked to so-and-so? And I said, I have. It was like several months ago. By the time I had her, she goes, oh no, Stephanie, you're on my radar. She not only remembered me, I'm on her radar. She's like, this is a small world. Like I just am waiting to be able to drop you somewhere. So it's getting out there and making new connections in so many other areas of this industry is such a smart thing to do. They're all friends on LinkedIn. I'm like just LinkedIn crazy. I don't go on and post a lot there, but if you go to my LinkedIn page, I've got a lot of connections and a lot of production companies as far as like Ireland and stuff. Like I've got so many connections in these areas, just reminding, just connecting, networking as much as I can.
And I think my gut thought was, wow, that's so brave to reach out to all these people. But like, I don't know, bravery, that sounds so patronizing thing to say. But again, it's the saleswoman, but I think also knowing that it's not like the sleazy used car salesperson, right? Like you have something to offer. You've got the skills to back it up, the talent to back it up. Like, what's the worst they're going to say?
No? Yeah.
Okay, move on, right?
Exactly.
But I think there's a big block for a lot of people, especially creatives, and like getting past that hurdle of recognizing that these industry professionals are also human and want to make nice human connections with other humans.
Absolutely. And there was one gentleman that I thought he was so dynamic. He was so fun. And immediately I reached out to him and said, I'd love a meeting. He's like, sure. We booked a meeting like that week. We pop up on Zoom. And so there were about 40 people auditing, 20 people that got into the course. There was like 60 people online watched him. And then I said, thank you so much for taking the time. And he said, Stephanie, you were the only one. And I went, pardon? He goes, you're the only one that reached out to me after that. He's like, you're going far.
Wow.
You think that people are scrambling. There's not that many people scrambling to do what they need to do. I don't even know if a lot of those 20 people finished their spec script. I heard sort of kind of mumblings like, they would say, okay, just a reminder to contact your mentor. A lot of you haven't contacted your mentors. And I'm like, I wanted that spot, and they're just wasting it because I wanted a mentor. So it's eye-opening to think, well, am I bothering people? Am I asking for too much? No, sometimes you're the only person asking. So it's better to ask and try.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I guess also it's tricky to find a job and not to be closed off to jobs that will support you while you're in your career. I feel like I lucked out, but I really opened myself up. I have a friend who I met through one of my screen agents. They had a production company together. He has an insurance company. He also was a co-owner of Raven Banner, the distribution company. Those are all high school buddies of his. And so we became friends. I pull him onto film festival panels and talk about insurance. And so one day we were out to lunch and I just joined ACTRA. So all of my jobs dried up because none of those casting directors knew who I was. And I was like panicked. And he's like, let's go to lunch. I haven't seen you in a while. He's like, so how's the union? And I just was like, I'm gonna have to waitress again. I'm too old for this. And I was like panicked. And he was like, I've been wanting to offer you a job. And I'm like, selling insurance? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, ew, no, absolutely. And he's like, no, think about it, Stephanie. You'll get a salary. You also get your commission. And I was like, but my job, my career. And he goes, no, I want you to stay in the industry. You're going to head my entertainment division. So it would look really good. You'll be the only broker that's actually in the industry and doing. And I was like, oh, by the time I'm in my car, I'm driving home to ask my husband's opinion. But I know, I'm like, he's going to say, take the goddamn job, Stephanie. And I did. And I haven't looked back. And it's one of those things where if I had thought going in, like, maybe I could do insurance. Like, no one thinks that. No one wants to be an insurance broker. It's not they want to be a princess or a fireman or a police officer. Like, no one goes, I want to be an insurance broker. So it was something that was put in front of me. And instead of just going, I examined it. I went and met the other brokers. I got my license, and I haven't looked back. It's been such a secure, wonderful thing that while I'm on set, I'm the one flipping up my laptop between takes, and I'm working. And people are like, "What? That's so brilliant!" I'm like, "Yeah, but." So I guess my advice is really be open to other avenues, other jobs that could support you while you're doing it and actually work in your favor. And now when I go back to TIFF parties, when I was TIFF before COVID, I'm handing out cards not as, hi, I'm an actor, please hire me. Can I save you on your insurance, on your production insurance? And now my Rolodex grew dramatically because I was talking to bigger and bigger, higher echelon people in the film industry. And then occasionally they'll send me an email. You know what? I got a role I think you'd like that you should really check out, and vice versa. I've been on set when they're like, oh, you do insurance? Can I get your card? I got to get my production insurance. I'd love you to take a look. So it's worked both ways. So really be open to considering other jobs that will support your love, your passion.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and thank you, Stephanie, for being my guest this week. Thank you so much for taking time out of your, I know, very busy and exciting schedule to share your story with me and with all of us. If you celebrate Christmas, I hope you all have a Merry, Merry Christmas and a happy holiday season. We've got lots of episodes coming up when the chaos of the holiday season settles down. I'm not changing the schedule. We got another one coming out next Friday. I hope you'll tune in. Bye.